Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, a look at increasing concerns over White House control of the U.S. Justice Department. Also tonight, how Westmec plans to use the $415 million in bonds recently approved by voters. And a new study finds that there are a lot more species of mammals than previously thought. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. The U.S. Justice Department has been transformed under the Trump administration. What was once an independent law enforcement agency is now taking direction from the White House to the point that the department's culture of independence and impartiality is pretty much gone. For more on this, we welcome former U.S. Attorney Paul Charlton. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Ted.
Is that culture of independence and impartiality, do you think it's gone?
I think it has been greatly impaired and greatly damaged. And Ted, if you can begin to think about this and go back to 1973, the Saturday Night Massacre, in which the Attorney General of the United States, Elliot Richardson, refused to comply with an order from the White House. Richard Nixon told Elliot Richardson, fire the prosecutor who's investigating me, Richard Nixon, and Elliot Richardson refused that order, lost his job, and so did a series of individuals within the Department of Justice because they wanted to do what was right. And since that period of time, since the Nixon administration, there has been a culture, a belief within the Department of Justice that they are an institution separate and apart from the White House. Yes, there are certain policies that you might seek to enforce, environmental crimes in one administration, gun crimes in another administration, but never to pursue what Nixon had then, which was an enemies list or an overt list of individuals who this president doesn't like.
Pam Bondi, she runs the Justice Department. She's the director there. She told folks in the department, you are enforcing the president's agenda, the president's policy. I find that fascinating, and I find it unbelievable in some ways.
It is disappointing because what it means in execution, for example, is that Eric Adams, who is now the outgoing mayor of the city of New York, had been charged with a number of counts relating to public corruption. There were prosecutors there, including the U.S. attorney in Manhattan and the line prosecutors there, who were told by the Department of Justice, the president wants you to dismiss the charges against the mayor, Eric Adams. They refused that order from the Department of Justice and were either fired or had to resign. There are a number of other prosecutors who have been involved in the prosecution of January 6th rioters, and they have lost their job because they raised their hands and said, I will do this job because I think it is a just and correct prosecution. So if you are refusing to do the bidding of the president, or you have done something which the president sees as inconsistent with his political views, you lose your job or are compelled to resign from your job. And that is anathema. That is completely inconsistent with what we, all of us, would want from a career prosecutor.
And under the direction, again, of Pam Bondi, the Attorney General. I mean, it's the president telling her, it sounds like the president telling her what to do, and she's telling the rank and file, do it.
The most recent example was that the President of the United States said, I want you to take all Democrats who are reflected in the Epstein files and begin an investigation of the Democrats. The correct response is, if there is a crime, we don't consider whether you are a Democrat or whether you are a Republican. We first identify the crime, and then we look for the individual. It is an incorrect aspect of the law in prosecution to say, I'm going to identify the individual and then look for the crime. And even if you are someone who believes that the president holds a political viewpoint that is something you like, that is consistent with your own viewpoint, it's important to be aware of the fact that he isn't always going to hold the office of the White House, that there will be another occupant of that White House someday. And if the culture and the way we want to think about prosecutors is that the prosecutors in the Department of Justice pursue whoever it is the occupant of the White House doesn't like, then we are, all of us, putting ourselves at risk of being prosecuted by someone who has a view of the world or politics that are different than our own.
Yeah, you were originally talking about finding facts to fit the narrative is what was going on there. And we have seen a number of people fired in the department, lots of resignations going on. The institutional knowledge that leaves the building when they leave the building, how big a deal is that?
That's a beautiful description of exactly what it is. It is an institutional knowledge, an embracing of a culture that says we are here to pursue justice, not a political end. And once those people leave, and if they are replaced by people who don't understand that that is the ethic by which prosecutors are supposed to pursue cases, and remember, Ted, just to state the obvious, these are people in whom we trust with the discretion to remove us from society, to put us in prison, in some cases, to take our very lives with the death penalty. They have to have an apolitical view of prosecution. And if we think or allow that other people, including occupants at the White House, can pursue us because of our political beliefs, then we are putting ourselves at risk of suffering a criminal penalty, time in prison, or worse.
And yet, those who support the president, and no doubt the president himself would say this, that institutional knowledge that I mentioned, that's the problem. That's the swamp. That's the deep state.
It's an incorrect viewpoint, because a number of these individuals, including the prosecutors who are handling, as we were talking about earlier, the prosecution of Eric Adams, were conservatives, decorated veterans of the war, supporters of President Trump, a former U.S. Supreme Court law clerk for Antonin Scalia, one of the most conservative former justices of the United States. He had to resign in the face of an order to dismiss the corruption charges against Eric Adams. So that's the kind of knowledge, that's the kind of person that we are losing. And Ted, the other aspect of this that's important to remember is that it will take a generation to replace those individuals that we have lost.
And I was going to ask about that. It sounds like as people are saying it has literally flipped the culture at the Justice Department. If it has, how long does it take to flip it back?
If those individuals who leave are replaced by people that we cannot believe or confide or have trust in, that they will execute their obligations to pursue justice and not a political end, it will take a number of years, perhaps a whole generation of prosecutors, to remove those people or see those people leave until we can bring the Department of Justice back to where it ought to be. It took a fair amount of time after the Nixon administration to put in place the kind of Department of Justice. So since the 1970s, we really have had some minor failings in that regard, some insignificant fallbacks, but by and large, it has been a Department of Justice in which we can have a great deal of trust.
And yet, supporters of the president and the president himself is saying, they will say that they are doing exactly what the Biden administration did and the Biden Justice Department did in going after Donald Trump. They have a point?
It's an unfortunate argument, because even if you believe that is true, it doesn't make what's happening today good or right. And it won't make what's happening in the future good or right if we constantly fall back to what somebody did to us in the past. We need to have a Department of Justice that's forward-looking and that will only do what is right, to seek the facts, apply the law, and then seek an appropriate outcome based upon that kind of thinking. If we are thinking that we can do some kind of a vengeance prosecution because we somehow were harmed in the past, then we're doing all of us a disservice.
Have we ever seen a Justice Department, prior even to Watergate, this aligned with the White House? It's basically his law firm right now.
It has become, in a very real way, a personal law firm, but different from a law firm in the sense that they have authority to impose criminal penalties.
Yeah, and we've never seen that before, have we?
We haven't seen that before. As I say, Nixon had a secret list. Nixon
Yes.
did things quietly, covertly. Here, this is very openly discussed, and Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, seems to be embracing this aspect of the extraordinary change in the Department of Justice.
Last question, a former U.S. attorney here, so you know the atmosphere, you know the climate, you know the mindset and the mood. What do you know, what do you think is going on with some of these career folks who are sticking by, and they're either bobbing and weaving around, you know, the slings and arrows, if you will, or they're just saying, this is what I do, and I'm going to keep doing it until someone tells me to stop. What is the mood, do you think?
So what I would tell you is that prosecutors, almost without exception, and there are some rare exceptions, are a self-selecting profession. You go into that profession because you want to do what's right. You want a profession where at the end of the day, you can look in the mirror and say, I did the right thing today. What I hope, Ted, is that the prosecutors who are currently there will stay there. We need good people to stay in place. We need good people who will attempt to influence their supervisors, the leadership there within the Department of Justice, that is the culture we need to embrace, because if they too leave, then we are all the more harmed.
All right. I tell you what, Paul Charlton, former U.S. Attorney, we always bring you on when these kinds of things happen and these kinds of, it's this kind of divisiveness in areas where there should not be, I don't know. I thank you so much for your insight, and as always, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Ted.
Skugta, Shaniana Pchigig, Kaylin Allen. Since the 1770s, the Gila River has drastically changed, notably with the removal of our water, through settlers coming in and diverting our water upstream. Since time immemorial, the Akimel Autumn saw Kuriakimel, the Gila River, as our lifeblood. It represented agriculture, our trade with other tribes, as well as our artistry, as many basketry materials were found here. The Akimel Autumn created innovative canal systems. These canals diverted water from the river into individual family farming plots. Because of the loss of our river, all of our fish species that were once in the Gila River are gone. This includes suckerfish, pike minnows, pupfish, and carps. There are 8 MARs across the Gila River Indian community. MARs stand for Managed Aquifer Recharge Sites, and these are composed of water from the Gila River, Central Arizona Project water, and just a myriad of different water sources that are then pumped back into select areas on the community. I believe that the restoration of our river is the ultimate path of resilience. As a sovereign and leading tribal nation, we now have the ability and means to make these changes that we want to see for our community members and for our reservation.
Maricopa County voters recently approved $415 million in bonds for the expansion of the Western Maricopa Education Center, known as WestMEC. WestMEC is a career and technical education public school district with a number of Valley campuses. As for the newly approved funds and how they'll be put to use, we ask WestMEC Superintendent Dr. Scott Spurgeon and Marilyn Babillard. She's the district's Executive Director of Student Services. Good to have you both here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Scott, we'll start with you. Give me a better definition of WestMEC.
Well, right now we actually serve students from over 130 high schools in our geographic footprint. And we have 32 unduplicated programs, and all of our programs, which may be a bit different than other programs throughout the country, all of our programs come with what we call a high-value credential. And that credential has been determined by our business and industry advisory councils, which means the students can leave our programs and go right into that career pathway and go to work the next day.
And that career path, Marilyn, we're talking tech programs, career programs, the whole gamut.
The whole gamut. We have 32 different programs ranging from nursing, CNA, physical therapy, collision, auto tech, welding, just a variety of programs.
And you work in cooperation and in conjunction with businesses. How does that work?
So for us, we really spend a great deal of time learning and understanding who's coming to the Valley and who actually sits in the Valley. And so our programs are geared towards ensuring that that pipeline continues for whatever career pathway they so choose. And my issue is that, we understand what business industry needs are. We also have to understand what the student desires are, because I can build facilities all day long, but I can't fill them up with students. I've wasted my money. And so we spend a great deal of time with business industry, our communities, our workforce development, economic development groups, really understanding the dynamics and where WestMEC sits in that ecosystem, providing that workforce for our business industry.
And that workforce, TSMC, EMCOR, Amazon, Gatorade, these kinds of places, they're part of it, huh?
Absolutely. In fact, TSMC was a huge partner for us about 2 years ago. And we worked with Scott Holman, who was Chief Human Resource Officer at that time, and I said that we want a partner. He said, we'll do that, but I said, you got to do one thing for me. He said, what's that? I said, you got to give me some engineers off the floor to help me write the program.
Marilyn, I was going to ask that. What do businesses say? What do they want? What are they looking for?
Well, we're their pipeline, right? So I'm always out there working with the high school counselors and educating them through really good professional development in the area of TSMC or engineering or auto, whatever that is. And I'm helping teach counselors how to then talk to their students about these programs.
Yeah, this $450 million in bonds. First of all, congratulations. I guess it's in store here. You won the vote. A little short, a little close call there, but you got it in. Where is that money going to be spent? That's a lot of expansion.
So let me give you a little background. So each year we're pushing getting close to 6,000 applications for our programs. We have only about 2,000 openings. And so we're going to continue to get more and more students applying for it, and many kids that can't get to WestMac because the state doesn't provide transportation funding for that. If those students could get to WestMac, we'd probably see that number grow exponentially. And so we're going to be able to open up more opportunities. We're going to build 4 new campuses,
Wow.
and we're going to add on to 4 more and to expand ourselves, double our capacity to probably over 6,000 students by the year 29.
And as far as where you sit, this new money, all this new expansion, this new opportunity, how do you see it?
It's so exciting. I meet with families and students and counselors all day long, and they are just excited for the opportunity for their students to be able to have that next step, their career pathway. We're doing a lot of career literacy in the elementary schools and then in the lower grades in the high school so that the students are ready for what's next, and then they apply to WestMac.
Has that always been the mission of WestMac, doing those kinds of things?
It has. Building relationships has been the cornerstone of who WestMac is.
Yeah, and that has it changed and evolved over the years, or is it pretty solid?
I think it continues to grow exponentially. I think the quality of product that we put out through our programs speaks for itself. As I've told people all along, if we weren't producing the quality of students that we produce, nobody would be knocking on our doors.
Yeah.
And right now, they're all knocking on our doors to ensure they get a spot at the table to be able to interview our students and get a chance at them.
Now, we're talking high school students. What about adult learners?
We do offer 8 adult programs. We also sit in the space where the largest community college system is here in Maricopa County. So we try not to compete with them, but we do offer some that just make sense for WestMac.
And land purchases involved in this, do you think, as far as getting these new facilities?
Yes, sir. Yeah, there will be. We actually have 2 in process right now that we've leased from the city of Peoria. They've done a great job working in collaboration with us. One of those pieces of property is at Peoria Avenue and 101, and one's going to be up in the North Estancia area, are the 2 we're working on right now.
Marilyn, last question for you.
Okay.
When the bond issue passed, okay, and the authority to use the bond passed, but the $415 million, what was your first thought?
I was just very excited. It just opens up so many doors for students who want to be in these programs. And the closer we can get to students' high schools, because Dr. Spurgeon spoke of there's no transportation, the easier it is. So when we say it's for all students, especially if we're closer to them.
All right. What next to watch, real quickly, from WestMac? What do we look for?
Next thing you're going to look for is our new Southeast campus at Thomas and 101 will be open this August in 26 with 6 brand new programs. So we certainly would like to see you out there to take a visit.
Dr. Scott Spurgeon and again, Marilyn Babiar, congratulations to both of you, and thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, a delayed jobs report shows stronger hiring than expected. That's coming up at 6 on Arizona PBS.
A new study by ASU researchers found that there are quite a bit more mammal species than previously thought, and that our understanding of the mammal world is still expanding and rapidly. Joining us now is Dr. Nathan Upham. He's associate professor at ASU's School of Life Sciences. Welcome to Arizona Horizon. Good to have you here.
Great. Yeah, it's really nice to be here, Ted. I appreciate it.
You bet. Now, this study, what exactly was this basically a mammal count? What was going on here?
Yeah, so we started this initiative called the Mammal Diversity Database. It's sponsored by the American Society of Mammalogists, which is a nonprofit of a bunch of scientists around the country. And we have a team of people that I lead as part of this database. And I should acknowledge a couple of them, actually. Connor Bergen at University of New Mexico and Jelle Zylstra, who runs the Hesperomys database. They've been able to help us catalog the total diversity of mammal species that are living now and recently extinct, as well as what those species are viewed as valid according to the scientific literature. And so, yeah, it is a count, but it's also much more than a count, because it's telling all the information about the meaning of those species' names.
Which is a big deal, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm a little bit biased, but as a mammal, right? You're also a mammal.
Yes.
We have this sort of like special interest in the heritage, the genetic heritage that we all share. I brought a little bit of a prop here that might actually help orient people a little bit.
Go ahead.
In thinking about mammal diversity.
Yeah.
So this is a tree of life that is, it's a laser cut into wood here that shows the 27 taxonomic orders. So it's one of the higher levels of organization that we organize biological diversity. And I pointed out here, well, we have primates here, so humans as being in primates, symbolized by a little running man.
Yes.
And then rodents here, symbolized by a porcupine, and bats shown here. And then the kind of really interesting thing, if I flip this over, is that the species diversity inside those taxonomic orders is heavily skewed towards rodents and bats, right? So it's about 2/3 of the total mammal diversity. So that we recognized 6,800 or so species of mammals that are in the database now, and about 2/3 of that diversity is either rodents or bats.
Why so many? I mean, is it because they're able to hide and evolve without too much pressure, or is that part of it, maybe?
Yeah, well, it's a very interesting question. First I would say we don't totally know.
Yeah.
But some of the leading hypotheses involve thinking about their special adaptations. So rodents have these two incisors on the top and bottom that are ever growing throughout their lifetime, and they're self-chiseling, right? So there's a hard enamel on the outside and a soft dentin on the inside.
Yeah.
And so they chisel and they self-sharpen. So they can open things like nuts, seeds, they can dig with those teeth. And we think that's allowed them to explore a lot of different ecological environments and kind of be successful in that regard. And then, of course, bats, the only flying mammals, right? And doing very interesting things. They have a long lifespan, and we know they're resistant to certain viruses. That's been in the news more recently.
Now, but again, when you did this study, you found a heck of a lot more in terms of diversity than the previous study like 20 some odd years ago.
Yeah.
Why the increase?
So yeah, I mean, this is really the interesting thing. I'd say it's a two-part reason, and they're both towards like greater understanding of the biological diversity that we have around us. First is the technology of being able to look at DNA sequencing in a lot more different animals. So this kind of genomic revolution that we're undergoing, and then also the international collaboration of really working in especially tropical countries with biologists in those countries that are now leading a lot of these studies. Brazil is a prime example of that, but also Indonesia and parts of Africa.
So it stands to reason that you can't cover the entire world. There are probably species out there that still are doing their business and no one even knows they exist.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, and that's actually that's part of the study as well, is that we're based on the current rate of increase of recognizing species, and I should say that there's also some species that were thought to be separate and that are now lumped in with others. So it's it goes both directions.
Yes.
It's not just a steady increase, but that we have about 65 species per year that are being added to the total. And that would put us closer to 8,000 species just by 2050.
So with this in mind, all this in mind, what do we take from this study?
Yeah, so species names are interesting. They end up being kind of the language of biological diversity that especially the scientists use to communicate with each other through time and among different countries and languages. So we all use these Latinized name of genus and species.
Right.
And by participating in that and describing species in that way, you're literally part of a conversation that Carl Linnaeus started in 1758 in Sweden. Kind of like the Systema Naturae, the initial taxonomy. We're all still kind of having that same conversation.
And we're learning, when you have the same conversation and when you do these kinds of studies, you learn how they adapt, how they grow, how they change, how one rodent changes this way and another rodent changes that way, but they're still the same.
Absolutely. Yeah, and sort of that ends up being really important for societally relevant things as well. So thinking about predator-prey interactions, it's like those are the species that are involved in that, host pathogen kinds of dynamics. So thinking about mammal-virus interactions is something that we do a lot in my lab, is trying to understand what level of, you need to know which species is the host in order to understand the biology that underpins that.
Well, Dr. Nathan Upham, thank you so much for joining. This is absolutely fascinating. I love this kind of stuff. Thank you for joining us.
I appreciate the opportunity.
You bet.
Thanks.
That's it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
Hi, I'm Catherine Anaya, host of Horizonte. Have you signed up for the Arizona PBS Conexión e-newsletter? Visit azpbs.org/Conexión to subscribe to the monthly resource created to serve Arizona's vibrant Hispanic community. Conexión highlights Latino-focused Arizona PBS programming and features learning resources for kids, details on upcoming events, important headlines, and a brief column from yours truly.
Next time on The American Revolution, winter at Valley Forge.
Unless some great change takes place, this army must dissolve.
Alliances are formed.
The new United States represents an existential threat.
And the French enter the war.
Britain knows that Spain and the Netherlands may be next.
When The American Revolution continues.
Tonight at 7 on Arizona.